Hello, and welcome to Breast Cancer Conversations, a podcast brought to you by survivingbreastcancer.org. I am Laura Carfang, breast cancer survivor and founder of survivingbreastcancer.org, a nonprofit organization providing community, education, and resources to empower those diagnosed with breast cancer and their caregivers from day one and beyond. Hello, my friends. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Breast Cancer Conversations. I am so excited that you join us week after week. And I just want to let you guys know a couple shout outs. If you don't know already, hop on over to our website, survivingbreastcancer.org/events, and you will find the lineup of all of the programs and events that we offer virtually that are 100% free to support you no matter where you are on this crazy wild ride of breast cancer. Additionally, I would encourage you, we are really trying to grow our engagement and our connections on social media. So I will link to all of our social media in the show notes below, but please follow us on Instagram at survivingbreastcancer.org, all one word. If you're interested more in my personal life, you can also follow me and our co-founder William at Laura and Will on Instagram as well. We post a lot of stuff about just the life of running a nonprofit, working crazy hours because we all have day jobs as well. And we do this out of the passion and love for our community. We also love to eat food. And quick side note, we recently just got married. We eloped in the Grand Canyon. So lots of good stuff. Follow us at Laura and Will. If there's content or anything that you're most interested in, I love to hear from you. So feel free to DM me on social or feel free to send me an email at laura@survivingbreastcancer.org. We have an awesome show lined up for you today. I am joined with Amy. We are going to be talking about the BRCA mutation and her decision to have a prophylactic double mastectomy, as well as some amazing inspiration towards the end of the episode as Amy talks about her role as executive director of Firefly Sisterhood. Welcome to the conversation.
I have a family history of breast and ovarian cancer. So in 2017, one of my cousins had her genetic testing done. And then after that, when hers came back positive, I decided to also have mine. I was actually really prompted by my physician because, every year when you go in and they say, do you have a family history of breast cancer? And you always are like, yeah. And they're like, you should do genetic testing. And I just kind of was like, okay, that's fine. I'll think about it next year. And then once my cousin was positive, my first cousin, I was like, yep, I really think I need to do this. So I did that of February 2017. And then when I got my results back in March, they were positive for a BRCA1 mutation. And so I decided to have a prophylactic bilateral mastectomy. And I also did a full hysterectomy with oophorectomy when I was 32.
So tell me, what was going on in your life at that time?
So I was kind of at a different place in my life. I already had 2 kids. So, a lot of people aren't able to make that decision yet with the hysterectomy because maybe they're not done having kids. They haven't gotten married yet and they still want to have kids. They're not at that point in their life. So I felt like it was a little bit of an anomaly. Even my doctor said that just because I was so ready to make my decision so fast. I also am fortunate because my mother-in-law works in healthcare, so was able to help me pick my providers pretty quickly. So I did move the process along pretty fast, more not because I needed to, but because I just was having such bad anxiety about it that I felt like I really needed to get it moving forward. So then in June I had, or in May I had my hysterectomy, and in June I had my mastectomy.
Tell me a little bit more about your family history.
So I do have a family history of breast cancer. My cousin that actually had the first genetic test that I was talking about earlier, she is currently on metastatic. So she was diagnosed triple negative and had a reoccurrence. So she's metastatic right now. She lives in Arizona. And then quite a few of my cousins have been also tested after that, and they were all positive for a BRCA mutation as well. So my brother has it. So as you know, there's kind of the stigma that only women can get breast cancer, or it's passed on only on the maternal side. But on my case, it's the paternal side. So that's something that I am very I strongly advocate for, is to make sure that people know their genetics and know that it can be passed down on the male side. So my dad is a BRCA carrier. My aunt, my cousins, she's a BRCA carrier. My grandma died of breast cancer. My great grandma died of breast cancer.
Well, thank you for that amazing recap and whirlwind of an experience you had. And I want to linger a little bit on the topic of genetic testing. Because when we go out and decide to get genetic testing, yes, we want to feel empowered and get the information for ourselves. But it is one of those things because it's genetics and genetics get passed on to, our children, and it really affects our entire family, both our ancestors and the people coming after us. And so when we get genetic testing, it's, yes, personal, but it also is one of those things that maybe not everyone in the family wants to know the answers to. So I'm always curious to kind of see families, and I'm so proud and amazed to hear your story and commend you for your proactiveness in talking about family history and family health so that way you can make a great decision and feel empowered going forward.
Thank you.
When you got your genetic testing, I know we talk a lot about BRCA1, BRCA2. Did you get other panels done? Because I know there are other types of genetic mutations that we can now test for.
Yes. And, and they're finding new ones every day too, which is incredible, the science behind it. I actually was only tested for the specific one because of it was already in my family. But if I would have known that, I would have done a full panel. But since we were looking for a specific sequence, I had my cousin's paperwork and we knew that's the one that we were looking for. So that we just tested for a specific sequence.
Did you meet with a genetics counselor before?
I did, yes. So I met with her first, and I was able to my cousin provided me all of her paperwork before. So I was able to get her file and then send that to my genetic counselor ahead of my appointment. And then we still went through the family tree and the risks, because I do actually have cancer on my mom's side as well. My grandpa had pancreatic cancer, passed away, and my uncle had colon cancer 2 years ago and passed away. So there's a lot of cancer in both sides of my family. My mom's side there's no genetic link there so far, but you just never know with all the science behind and the research. But so I met with a genetic counselor, and then after that, she's the one that called me with my results. That they were positive. And she said, do you want to come in and talk about it? And I said, nope, you can just give me over the phone. I already know if it's positive, I already have a plan. So, everyone is different. Some people want to go in, talk to them, get their results. I just felt like for me, I already had my decision made. I knew what I wanted to do if it was positive. But there's also people that, go in and talk to their genetic counselor, make a decision. And then my cousin, who is metastatic currently, she decided at first to do surveillance. So she was doing more 6-month MRIs for a while, and then unfortunately had the diagnosis. But everybody kind of makes a different plan when they're prophylactic, when they're trying to figure out a prophylactic plan.
That's so amazing just to already have a plan in place. And it sounded like mentally you were already mentally and emotionally there, ready for these results, and were able, when you find out whether you were BRCA positive or negative, what path you were going to take next. So yeah, that's really interesting. I also find it really interesting that you know so much about your family history, because I talk to so many people that we really keep things close to the vest. We, in my family, for example, my relatives never talked about illness. And it wasn't until my own diagnosis that things started coming out of the woodwork. So growing up, everything was like, oh, so-and-so is just, she's not feeling well, or she can't come to the birthday party, or she can't do these things. And everyone was just like, she'll be fine. But everyone was just kind of like that generic term, is not feeling well or is ill or is sick, without actually going into the details. Had we known, I could have passed that information on to my primary care, could have possibly done, more high risk screenings, et cetera. And so if you wouldn't mind sharing, is your family very open about talking about cancer?
Yes, I would say, and more so, we were a little bit more open once we had the BRCA diagnosis. So once we were BRCA positive, it became more of an open conversation. But before that, it was a little bit more, closed off, and we weren't really talking about it. So my grandpa that passed away he was also BRCA positive. We didn't know he was BRCA positive until we went back and looked at his paperwork or his medical file after he had actually passed away. So finding those things out after, seeing the genetic sequence in there, because he was tested for it, we just didn't know. At that time, he passed away about 7 years ago. So, but I think I also am a little bit open about my story. I like to share it. I want to make sure that all my cousins were aware that, this is a 1 in 2 chance. I mean, I don't think people understand it's either you have it or you don't. You either have the mutation or you don't. And so I think that's important to talk about. And just letting them know that, be your own advocate, talk to your healthcare provider. And I was always happy to there's actually something that the genetic counselor will give you that says, here's a way to talk to your family. Here's something to pass off to your family. I'm sure they'll give you all this information. So it's a resource to have, and not everybody likes to receive that information, because it's a scary topic too, to
Scary.
know like, yes. And it's also, for me, with my family history, I had an 87% chance of having breast cancer, but I might also never have breast cancer. So it's not just because you have the high risk, it doesn't mean you're going to get it, but it's just a choice that you have to make. So I feel like a pretty good job at just letting my family know that, this is here, the resources are here. And if you want them, here's, a great genetic counselor in the area, and we'll just go from there.
Fantastic. And I think you bring up a really great point also that you were looking for a specific sequence for the BRCA gene because of your cousin's positive diagnosis with BRCA. And for people listening as well, I think these are just great questions to have. Not only talk to your family about the family history, but also when you're talking to your primary care or your oncologist or anyone who is considering genetic testing, that, and Amy, you are alluding to this too, that there are other panels that you can advocate for. And I was diagnosed, I think it's like 7 years now. So I feel like a super old timer because the medicine and the panels have changed. But when I was first diagnosed, I think I was given, the 7 high risk genetic mutations that they were looking for. So in addition to the BRCA 1 and 2, we were looking for, PALB, CHEK1, ATM, like all of these things. And to your point, every day they're discovering new mutations. And I went back to my genetics counselor a couple years, maybe 2 years ago now, to say, I think I should be tested again because I came back negative for all of my genetics. I still got breast cancer and I don't know why. And so part of it is thinking, well, I mean, there could be so many reasons and we're not going to go down the rabbit holes. But part of me also feels like maybe we just haven't found the genetic mutation yet that caused me to get breast cancer, right? And so just kind of opening up that can of worms and letting our listeners know you can go in and look for something specific, or you can keep it more broad. And I think a lot of that also comes down to what your insurance might cover as well. So
correct. Yeah.
Just things to know.
Yep.
Let's change gears slightly and dive into the surgery piece, your thought process around a prophylactic double mastectomy.
Sure. So once I, found out that I was positive for mutation, I met with first a plastic surgeon and then a breast surgeon, and they worked really closely together as well. And both of them had done a lot of prophylactic surgeries in the past, so that was nice, just to kind of have the comfort of somebody that had done this surgery before, and they kind of really made me feel comfortable about my decision, because it is scary to go in knowing. And I talk to women that are diagnosed with cancer, every day, so it's obviously my thought process was very different. It wasn't I had to do this. It was, I can do this or I cannot do this. So it was a different feeling, I think. But they were really great about, making me feel comfortable about my decision and answering all my questions and then explaining the follow-up that would be required. And just kind of what I needed to do after to, there's other things that you need to do with a BRCA mutation as well. As there's pancreatic cancer, there's colon cancer, there's melanoma. So there's all these other things. And even my breast surgeon was really good about reminding me of all these things, even more so than even my genetic counselor, which was, she just said, make sure that we're following up on these every so often, and we'll keep talking about these as you get older, but those are also important things to note. So that was good, that I felt really comfortable just with the medical providers that I had. So when I had my mastectomy, I stayed overnight in the hospital one night. I had a complication, unfortunately.
I think the reality is anytime you have a surgery, not just breast surgery, but any type of surgery, there's a chance of risk and complications. And so I'm sorry you had to go through that, but if you're open to sharing, I think it's helpful for us to hear.
So I had my surgery on June 6th of 2017, and it went really well. I went direct to implant. That's what most people that are prophylactic do, not all, but a lot of them. So I went direct to implant, and I had a great day. I was feeling great, obviously, because of the meds, until they started to kick in. And then I did stay overnight. This was pre-COVID, so they were still having a lot more people, I feel like, stay in the hospital. Now a lot of the women I talk to, I feel like when they're doing direct implant, they kind of go home that day.
Mm-hmm.
But I stayed overnight, and it's very fortunate that I did, because I had a hematoma in the middle of the night, and I kept feeling like, I was like, gosh, this one feels really hard. Like, I kept telling the nurse, like, I think this breast just feels really hard. And she was like, well, they're swollen, you can't, that's just what it is. And then all of a sudden I fainted.
Wow.
And they put me in the bed, and then my husband, I was fine. Like, they just thought I was just tired, whatever. And then like 4 hours later, I fainted again. And my hemoglobin was low. It was like 4 or 5. It was like incredibly low. And I had to have emergency surgery because my breast was so swollen. It was like up to my chin.
Wow.
So I had to have emergency surgery that night. And then I was in the hospital for a couple more days after that. But my surgeon did a great job. She came in. She wasn't the on-call one, but they called her and she came in right away and fixed everything. So, and apparently after talking to my breast surgeon, she told me that prophylactic surgeries have a higher risk of having a hematoma. I don't know if that's true, but that's just something that, I was told after that. So
I did do a little bit of research, and for anyone who does not know what a hematoma is, it is basically a bad bruise, and it happens when an injury causes the blood to collect or pool underneath the skin. It is one of the more common complications as a result of a mastectomy, but really any type of surgery can cause this type of complication, and it's great to be monitored immediately after your surgery and knowing that hematomas can occur even a week to 10 days after your surgery. So you had this complication and then you had to go in for immediate surgery. What was that like?
they removed the implant and then they put a new one in.
Oh, okay.
Because that one they had said it would be infected then, or they couldn't use it anymore. So I had that one, and then after that, I was fine. I stayed in the hospital a couple more days just because my hemoglobin was low and I was pretty sick. And then I had a couple blood transfusions, and then I went home, and then I had a couple more complications after that. It wasn't healing. So unfortunately, I had to have 2 more surgeries on that same breast because the implant kept getting infected because the incision wasn't healing. And I don't know. I mean, it just kind of is what it is. I got through it. It's fine now. But there's always those risks with those kind of surgeries, and that's just something that I had to go through with mine.
Another question I had was, you mentioned that you're married and you have children already. How did you confront any of the conversations with them about your choices?
They've been really involved in everything. So at the time right now they're 15 and 9. At the time, I think they were 3 and 9. So I actually was, found out I was BRCA positive on my daughter's 3rd birthday.
Oh, wow.
So my daughter was younger at the time, but now she's been very involved. My son was a little bit older. He knew what was going on. He knew I was going to the hospital. We told them. We've been very open with health decisions and like health with them, I guess, from the start. So I haven't ever shied anything away. I did have new implants put in about a year and a half ago because I had another infection separate from the other one. And my daughter even helped me with the drains.
Oh, yeah.
So they have been, I want them to see, that life is not all like rainbows and sunshine, unfortunately. And they do see that with the work that I do because they come to a lot of events.
Yeah.
And they've been around, cancer in my family. But I think it's really important for them to see, what moms are capable of, what women are capable of, and how, we can go through all of this and still be there for them and comfort them. And just know that, sometimes mom needs to take a break too. So my daughter was really great last time. She helped me strip my drains. When I first was, talking about it with them when they were 3 and 9, my daughter didn't really understand at all. But we did say, mom's going to have surgery. And now they're fine about it. And my son was 9 and he's, a 9-year-old boy. So it was kind of like, all right. But yeah, no, after that. And now since then, they've been really involved in just, helping me advocate for breast cancer. They understand that I have a genetic mutation. I haven't talked to them as much, especially my daughter, that I haven't told her like you will have a 1 in 2 chance of having to have this at some point.
Right.
That's not a conversation we've had yet, but she does know like I had mine because I had something in my body that made me have a high risk of breast cancer.
Right.
But we haven't had the conversation where, what we'll have to have, I guess, 9 years down the road or so.
Yeah. And that's so challenging. I mean, I've talked to women who carry genetic mutations, and it's very heavy, I think, to weigh on you as I have this, and it's a potential that this got passed on to my children, and they can't get tested until at least they're 18 years of age, et cetera. So, just kind of carrying that burden a little bit, I think is so important to just share with other moms that you're not alone going through this, that there are people out there who have genetic mutations and are navigating life, being parents with their children. And I think what you're saying is like, what are the age appropriate milestones to bring them into this journey and letting them know?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a little bit easier with my son being 15 and being a male because we've talked to his pediatrician last time, and they do know that I have it, the mutation, just because I've let them know, just in case there's ever a research that comes up that it links to some sort of, you never know if it'll link to some sort of childhood cancer or, just with the research that's being done, you don't know. So I've let the providers know that. And so my son does know that I have it, and that he could have a 1 in 2 chance of having it. But as a male, obviously there still is a high risk. There's colon, there's pancreatic, there's melanoma, there's prostate. But that's not the things that he needs to think about right now. Whereas a female, it's a little bit different because she'll have to start having breast exams probably at 18 or even younger, with the pediatrician, just because with BRCA1 diagnosis, a lot of people get triple negative, and then that's what most women develop that at a younger age. So just, I think, being aware of those things, and at some point I will have to have that conversation, but just giving her aware of like breast cancer and, what it is and what I do and what I've had done. She doesn't need to know exactly the details yet, but making sure that she's really aware of the situation.
Approaching it from an awareness perspective and an empowering perspective where, you could do your self breast exams, you could talk about it. Some of the work that we're even doing going into like high schools and colleges and talking to sororities is just like, it's, if you're not around cancer, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. And then I think I'm excited to like meet your daughter on the podcast at some point. Because I just think it's so great to involve people in the realities and then giving them the tools to be screened and have the opportunity to advocate for themselves and that there's choices out there.
Yep, I agree.
So switching gears a little bit. So thank you for sharing your story. I would love to hear a little bit more about how you got involved with Firefly Sisterhood and the work that you're doing, and that the nonprofit that you're associated with can provide this amazing support and space and mentorship for those going through either a genetic mutation, positive diagnosis, or breast cancer themselves.
So I joined Firefly. I've been there since April 2021. I came from a different nonprofit, actually kids cancer nonprofit called Pinky Swear Foundation, which is also a fabulous organization. And I was their events director, but I've also always been in nonprofit work. I've done a lot of fundraising before. I was at Firefly for BCRF, Pink Agenda. I had done events. My family had been fundraising for BCRF for about 5 years. We've raised about $126,000 before I started at Firefly. So, just really important because we were working really focusing on the research and genetic space. And then I just kind of wanted to switch gears a little bit and work on the support side, just because I've seen so many people in my family that had gone through cancer and really needed, somebody to talk to that had been through something very similar. And this opportunity came along. So I interviewed, and it's been great ever since. So when a woman is diagnosed with breast cancer, they'll contact Firefly. And the ways that they usually find out is from their provider. So we have about 200 plus providers that refer their patients to Firefly. And what they have is just, like a brochure at the office, or the nurse navigator when they're diagnosed will say like, you should call Firefly. And then just word of mouth, website, searches, those kind of things. So when somebody is diagnosed, they'll go on our website and fill out a support form called Get Support. And then what we do is it'll kind of intake basic information like name, age, diagnosis, if they know. Some people contact us when they know everything about their diagnosis. Some people contact us the day they're diagnosed. Some will contact us a year out and decide that now is the time they need support. So really, we just leave that section open, like the notes section. They can tell us kind of what they want to talk to us about. And then contact information, and we'll get a notification that we have a support request. And then we have 2 program managers on staff, program support coordinators, and they will return a phone call to this person. And it's about an hour interview. It's pretty intentional. So we go over a lot of things, their diagnosis, what kind of support they're looking for, their interests, their hobbies, where they're located. Are they looking to meet in person? Are they okay with remote support? Most people I feel like that are, currently in treatment, they're okay meeting virtually or phone texting because they're not really out in public wanting to meet people when they're going through chemo or, any kind of treatment. So most of the time it's virtual support, but once in a while when it's nice out, if they're local, they'll meet for a walk or those kind of things. So we do want to ask that just in case they do want more of that personal interaction, or if they're okay with just the virtual support. And then once we are done with that, that takes about an hour or so, then we'll go into our database and put all the information, and then also we'll pull up all of our mentors and then see who matches based on the information that we took. So the main match points would be the breast cancer type, the age, the stage, and what treatment they're having, and if they're, what surgeries they're having. And then after that, we can kind of get down into more of the details of, are they a runner? Are they looking for somebody else that runs? They want to talk to how is it to go back to your workout schedule, or are you a lifter and you're going to go back to weightlifting after a mastectomy? Or some people are young moms and they want to know what it's like to go through chemo having like a baby and a toddler at home. Like, how did you manage that? So it really is just we try to be really intentional on that point. And then we'll pull up the matches, and after that, we'll reach out to the first mentor on the list that matches them, and we'll go from there. And when we match them, we send an intro email to the both of them, and then we really let them take the match from there. So it's kind of up to them how they want to communicate. We usually have our mentors set the boundaries, set the guidelines, like when do you want to talk? Because we always try to tell our mentors like the ball is in their court. Person that's newly diagnosed, as you know, you have a lot going on. You have appointments, you have so many things to remember, you have paperwork, you have your family asking you a million questions. So we really try to have our mentors, just be a resource for them. We don't offer medical advice, but they can share their stories. They can give little tips and tricks like what worked for them at this specific chemo. Here's something that I tried for nausea, those kind of things. So it's really just somebody to talk to that's been through something similar. And usually the matches last about 6 months or so through the course of treatment. And then a lot of the women will say, okay, I've kind of got what I've got from this match. Now we're going to close it. But most of them stay friends after, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Amazing. And how many people do your guides mentor or match at a time? Is it really just one-to-one, or would they ever like mentor two people if they were a good fit?
Yep. So we kind of ask them, like, if it's up to them, like, how many matches are you wanting to take? So say, you matched with somebody and then the next week you match with somebody else. We would ask them, do you want to have 2 matches at a time? And it kind of depends, what's the time commitment of the first match? Is it somebody that they're just texting with once in a while, or is it more this person is looking for a lot of support? And some people will have 2 or 3 matches at a time. Most people just have one. We also do surgical panels. So if somebody's trying to decide between like 4 different surgeries and they have the option and they don't know what they want to do, they don't want support, they just need a surgical panel, we'll match them with 4 different people who have had those 4 surgeries. And then they can talk to each one and see the pros and cons of that person's experience. That's not probably going to be exactly what they have. So we do remind them of that, and then go from there.
So the surgical panels so it's not like a panel, like a webinar panel, but.
No, it's just, we would match. So like say I was looking for 4 different surgical options. I was trying to decide between, a lumpectomy, a mastectomy, and a flap or something. Mm-hmm. Then I would be able to talk to 3 mentors who have had those things, and just one-on-one still. Yeah. So it kind of like 3 matches, but you're just, it's not as long of a match. You're kind of just looking for more surgical support and just trying to figure. Some people really have a hard time deciding what they're going to do.
Oh, absolutely. And that's something I definitely want to refer our listeners to, because, I think not just the peer-to-peer support, but something so tailored where it's scary. You don't know. If you start Googling surgery, you're going to see all sorts of horrific pictures on the internet. Right. I remember when I was going through my surgery options, I changed my mind like every day. Like some moments I was like, oh, I'm going flat. I'm feeling so empowered. I want to reduce the number of surgeries I have to have. I think a lot of times too, people don't realize, and even in your story, how many surgeries are involved where it's not necessarily one and done. And even without complications, right? So going from, expanders to implants or tissue, et cetera. So like some of the questions to even ask your doctor, so you have all of the information, and how long it's going to take to heal, right? I know the questions come up like, when can I pick up my kid again and like hug him? And, just being able to get back into the workout routine or returning back to work, et cetera. So I think that is such a unique thing that you guys offer. That's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, and we have about 200 active mentors, so peer mentor guides. So those are the survivors and thrivers. And we usually ask that they've been in survivorship, or if they're a thriver, then, our stage 4 program is a little bit separate because we only match stage 4 with stage 4.
Sure. And where do your mentors come from?
And all of our mentors are great. So they're from all over. We're located in Minnesota, but you can mentor from anywhere. So if you are a survivor or thriver and would love to be a mentor with Firefly, we're always accepting new mentors. So we have online training, and we also have in-person training depending on where you're located. So when somebody wants to become a mentor with us, there's just a form. It's just on our website as well. You just click on become a guide, and it's sort of the same form as a Get Support. It's basic information, and then we also do about an hour phone call just to really get to know you. And because we will be matching you with somebody, so we need to know what your interests are and your diagnosis. And also, a lot of the mentors have had multiple surgeries, so they have, more in their file actually, because they probably already had, they went, they had their expanders, or they had additional surgery, or they had a fat grafting, or, we also add in there, we get specific as to some people, have had a hysterectomy, or they're going to freeze their eggs, or those kind of things. They've had to do IVF. So we do have all of those tabs to pull down on as well when we're looking for mentors, because that might be something that people want to talk about as well, because obviously with, breast cancer, we know that those are important topics too. So we want to make sure that we're providing the full support that we can to the people that are requesting support to the best of our ability. It's not always going to be a perfect match. But for the most part, we've matched 2,500 plus people, and we haven't really had anybody that's had a bad experience. I'm sure there's, the one or two that have, you never know, but so far it's been great. So we've been around since 2014 and done over 2,500 matches.
It's incredible work that you're doing. I'm so excited.
Thank you.
So how can people find you, whether it's on your website or social media? Can you just share how people can find you?
Yep. So social media, it's at Firefly Sisterhood. And then that's on our Instagram and Facebook. And then our website is www.fireflysisterhood.org.
Awesome. And we'll put all of that in the show notes as well, so people can just click there and get connected. Amy, thank you so much for sharing your story, for sharing your passion, how people can get connected with Firefly Sisterhood. You are an inspiration to so many women, and I am so glad to have you as a guest on today's show. Thank you for joining us.
And thank you, everyone, for listening to our show. I would like to acknowledge that all of the information on our podcast are from personal experiences and are not a substitute for professional medical advice. You should always contact your medical care team. If you're looking for specific topics or would like to be a guest on our show, please feel free to reach out to me. My email is laura@survivingbreastcancer.org. Until next time, keep on thriving.